Free yourself from those who don't care, let them go. Sara Jakes' advice said, ladies and gentlemen, today, I want to talk to you about a truth that many of us struggle to accept sometimes. The greatest act of love we can give ourselves is to walk away from those who don't truly care. It's painful, it's humbling, but it's necessary. Because at the end of the day, your worth isn't determined by how much someone neglects or dismisses you. It's defined by how much you value yourself enough to let go. Sometimes the hardest thing to face in life is recognizing that not everyone who walks into your world has your best interest at heart. It's a truth that can be uncomfortable because deep down, most of us want to believe that the people around us are genuinely invested in our well-being. We want to see the good, believe in the possibility of change, and trust that at some point love and care will show up in those relationships. But the reality is, not everyone is meant to stay. Some people are simply passing through, and their presence in your life is more about what they can take than what they can give. The first step to freeing yourself from those who don't care is to develop the courage to see the truth, even when it's painful. It's easy to wear rose-colored glasses to convince ourselves that maybe things will get better, that maybe the indifference is just a phase, or that with enough patience, they'll come around. But patience doesn't mean enabling neglect. Sometimes patience is just us giving more of ourselves to people who are unwilling or unable to reciprocate. Recognizing toxic or indifferent relationships requires honesty. It requires asking yourself, am I being valued? Am I being supported? Do I feel lifted or drained after spending time with this person? These questions aren't meant to condemn, they're meant to clarify. Because when we ignore the signs of indifference or neglect, we begin to accept crumbs of love and validation, convincing ourselves that it's enough. But real love, genuine care, and authentic connection are never about crumbs. They're about abundance, consistency, and presence. It's important to understand that indifference isn't just about someone ignoring you occasionally. It's about a persistent pattern of dismissiveness, a lack of concern for your feelings, your dreams, or your well-being. It's about feeling more alone in their presence than you do when you're by yourself. And that, my friends, is a red flag. It's a sign that someone's energy isn't aligned with your growth, your peace, or your happiness. When you see these signs clearly, it takes courage to face the truth. Because admitting that a relationship isn't healthy, isn't serving you, or isn't built on genuine love can feel like betrayal. We want to believe people are good, that they'll change, that our love is enough to turn things around. But love isn't about fixing people who don't want to be fixed. Love is about recognizing your worth and knowing when to walk away for your own peace. And this is where the journey begins, learning to see people for who they truly are. It's not who we wish they would be. It's about accepting that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to let go of those who dismiss your presence, who minimize your struggles, or who simply don't care enough to show up for you. The truth is, when you tolerate indifference for too long, you start to believe that it's normal. You begin to think that your feelings aren't valid, that your happiness is secondary, and that your needs are too much to ask for. But I want to remind you today that your feelings are valid, your needs are legitimate, and you deserve relationships that nourish your soul, not drain it. Developing the courage to recognize that someone doesn't care doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're waking up to your own worth. It's about understanding that you have the right to demand love and respect. It's about refusing to settle for less than what you deserve. When you do this, you're not just freeing yourself from their neglect, you're reclaiming your power and your peace. You see, indifference isn't just about how someone treats you. It's about how you allow yourself to be treated. It's about setting boundaries that protect your heart. It's about listening to that still voice inside that says, this isn't right, and having the strength to act on it. Because if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. You have to be willing to face the uncomfortable truth. Look at the situation honestly and choose yourself every time. Letting go of those who don't care is an act of radical self-love. It's stepping into the understanding that your value isn't up for negotiation. When you hold on to relationships that diminish you, you're telling yourself that your happiness and peace are not worth fighting for. But that's a lie. You are worth more. You are worthy of being loved, supported, and celebrated. And once you realize that, your entire perspective shifts. It's not about abandoning others or giving up on hope. It's about recognizing when hope has turned into a cycle of disappointment and choosing to walk away from that cycle. It's about understanding that sometimes love means knowing when to release someone, not because you're bitter or angry, but because you're committed to your own well-being and growth. You have to ask yourself, are they adding to my life or subtracting from it? Are they showing up with care, or are they always absent when I need them most? The answers might be uncomfortable, but they're necessary. Trust that when you release what's not meant for you, there's space for what truly is. When you stop pouring into relationships that don't reciprocate, you create room for genuine connections, people who see your worth, cherish your presence, and support your journey. Sometimes letting go is the only way to make room for the blessings that are waiting for you. It's about understanding that your peace is priceless, and no one should have the power to rob you of it through neglect or indifference. Recognize that the process of seeing and accepting these truths is not a sign of weakness or failure. It's a testament to your strength, your self-awareness, and your refusal to settle for less than you deserve. It's about embracing the reality that you are worthy of love that is consistent, caring, and genuine. And that truth is the foundation of everything else you're about to learn on this journey toward freedom and wholeness. Understanding that letting go of those who don't care is an act of love for yourself is only the beginning. The next step is to see that holding on to toxic or neglectful relationships is actually a form of self-betrayal. When you stay tethered to people who diminish your spirit, you're telling yourself that your peace, your happiness, and your growth aren't worth fighting for. But deep down, you know better. Deep down, you know that every time you choose to stay in a relationship that drains you, you're compromising your own well-being for the sake of familiarity or fear of being alone. Letting go isn't just about removing someone from your life. It's about breaking free from the emotional and mental chains that keep you stuck. It's about realizing that staying attached to what no longer serves you is a slow form of captivity. When you're emotionally entangled with people who dismiss your feelings, ignore your needs, or refuse to invest in your growth, you begin to shrink inside. You start to question your worth, question your value, and question whether you deserve better. It's as if your spirit gets dulled little by little because you're accepting less than your worth. This process of breaking free can be uncomfortable because it challenges everything you've been conditioned to believe about loyalty, love, and sacrifice. Society often teaches us to be forgiving, to overlook imperfections, to fight for the relationship no matter what. But what if I told you that true strength lies in knowing when to walk away? That walking away from what no longer serves your highest good is not a sign of weakness, but a declaration of your worth. That sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is release the very people who refuse to see your value. When you cling to toxic relationships, you're not just holding on to the person, you're holding on to the pain, the disappointment, and the frustration that come with it. And if you think about it, every time you stay, you are essentially telling yourself that your pain is acceptable, that your peace is negotiable, but your peace is non-negotiable. Your happiness isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Your growth isn't optional, it's essential. Letting go is about choosing yourself over the chaos, over the neglect, and over the indifference. It's about understanding that your life is too precious to be spent waiting for someone to see your worth, waiting for someone to acknowledge your pain, your dreams, or your value is a waste of your time and energy. When someone consistently dismisses your feelings, they are not the person for you. They are not the one meant to walk beside you on this journey. It takes courage to let go of the familiar, especially when that familiarity has become a comfort zone, even if that comfort zone is filled with neglect or indifference. But growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. Growth happens when you decide to step into the uncomfortable space of change, of release, and of renewal. It's about trusting that the pain of letting go is temporary, but the reward of freedom is eternal. You have to understand that every relationship that drains your spirit is like a weight holding you down. It's like carrying a backpack filled with stones that you don't need. When you carry those stones long enough, you forget what it's like to walk freely, to breathe deeply, to stand tall. But when you finally decide to unburden yourself, to drop those stones, you realize how much lighter you feel. You realize that the weight was never yours to carry in the first place. Letting go is not a sign of defeat. It's a declaration of victory over your own life. It's about saying, I refuse to be held hostage by someone's indifference. It's about recognizing that your happiness is worth fighting for, even if that fight means walking away from what's familiar, because what's familiar isn't always what's right. Sometimes, staying in a toxic relationship becomes a trap, a cycle that keeps you from experiencing the fullness of what life has to offer. The truth is, when you hold on to what's not meant for you, you're also holding on to the limitations that come with it. You're limiting your potential, your joy, your peace, and your ability to attract healthy, supportive relationships. You're telling yourself that being tolerated is enough when in reality, you were created for love, respect, and genuine care. You were designed to thrive in environments that celebrate your worth, not diminish it. Letting go means making space for something better. It means clearing out the clutter of neglect and indifference so that your life can be filled with relationships that uplift you, that challenge you to grow, and that see your true value. When you release the weight of toxic connections, you create room for new blessings to come into your life, blessings that align with your purpose, your dreams, and your happiness. And this process isn't about rushing or forcing change. It's about patience, resilience, and trust. Trust that as you let go, the right people will come into your life naturally. Trust that your journey toward wholeness is unfolding exactly as it should. It's about embracing the discomfort of change because you know that on the other side of that discomfort is freedom. The freedom to become the person you were always meant to be. The person who refuses to settle for less than they deserve. When you understand that, you realize that the act of letting go is an act of love, not just for yourself, but for those who are meant to walk into your life with genuine care. It's an act that says, I value myself enough to release what no longer serves me so I can step into the fullness of who I am. It's about understanding that your life is too valuable to be spent in emotional imprisonment, waiting for people who refuse to see your worth. Letting go is also about trusting that you are enough, even when others have made you feel otherwise. It's about believing that your dreams matter, your voice matters, and your happiness matters. When you hold on to relationships that diminish you, you're telling yourself that your worth is conditional. But your worth isn't conditional, it's inherent. It's a divine gift. And once you accept that, the process of releasing what no longer aligns with your destiny becomes easier. It requires a shift in perspective, a shift from seeking validation from those who neglect you to finding validation within yourself. It's about knowing that your value isn't determined by how people treat you, but by how you see yourself. When you start to see yourself through the lens of love and worth, you'll realize that walking away from indifference isn't just an option, it's a necessity. You have to understand that sometimes the greatest act of love you can give yourself is the courage to let go, to release the weight, the pain, and the disappointment so you can rise above it all. When you do, you'll see that your life transforms, not because of what others do, but because of what you choose to do for yourself. You'll realize that your happiness, your peace, and your future are worth fighting for, even when it means walking away from what's familiar. Because in that act of releasing, you're making room for the life you were created to live, a life filled with love, respect, and genuine care that reflects your true worth. There is a powerful truth we often overlook in the journey of life, the importance of understanding that your true power lies in your ability to forgive. Forgiveness isn't just about releasing someone else from their wrongs. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of bitterness, resentment, and pain that can hold you hostage. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, a key that unlocks the door to your peace, your healing, and your growth. When you hold on to anger or hurt, you carry it around like a heavy backpack that weighs you down every single day. It's a silent burden that drains your energy, clouds your vision, and keeps you from stepping into the fullness of your purpose. Forgiveness starts with a mindset shift. It's about recognizing that holding on to pain doesn't hurt the other person as much as it hurts you. It's about seeing that harboring resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. The truth is, forgiveness is not about forgetting what happened or excusing the wrong. It's about choosing to no longer let that wrong control your life. It's about reclaiming your power and deciding that your future will not be dictated by past hurts. It's a declaration that your peace is more valuable than revenge or holding on to what hurts. Many of us carry wounds from the past that keep replaying in our minds like a broken record. We relive the pain, the disappointment, the betrayal over and over again, allowing it to define us. But forgiveness is the antidote. It's the act of releasing the offense, not because the offense wasn't valid or painful, but because you understand that carrying it only prolongs your suffering. Forgiveness is the act of saying, I refuse to be enslaved by what happened to me. I choose freedom. I choose healing. When you forgive, you are not giving the other person a pass. You are giving yourself permission to heal and move forward. The process of forgiving can be difficult because it challenges our pride, our sense of justice, and our desire to see someone held accountable. But forgiveness isn't about condoning what was done. It's about releasing the emotional grip it has on you. It's about acknowledging that you are more than your pain, more than the injustice you suffered, and more than the scars that linger. Forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself to reclaim your peace and to set boundaries that protect your heart from further harm. Sometimes, forgiveness begins with a simple prayer, asking for the strength to forgive, asking for the grace to let go. It's a step-by-step process that involves honest reflection, prayer, and sometimes seeking support from someone you trust. It's about realizing that forgiveness is a journey, not a one-time event. It's about choosing to forgive daily, especially when old feelings resurface. Because healing isn't linear and forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to not let the past define your future. When you forgive, you open the door for restoration, not necessarily of the relationship, but of yourself. You create space for love, peace, and joy to return to your life. Forgiveness allows you to release the pain and embrace the peace that comes from knowing you've done your part to heal. It's a declaration that your heart is bigger than your hurt, that your spirit is resilient enough to rise above betrayal and disappointment. Forgiveness is an act of courage, a step toward wholeness, and a sign that you refuse to let past wounds dictate your destiny. But forgiveness isn't always easy. Sometimes, it feels like an impossible mountain to climb, especially when the wound runs deep. It's in those moments that you have to remind yourself of the strength you carry inside. You have to remember that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to no longer be chained to what happened. It's about reclaiming your power and refusing to let bitterness take root in your heart. It's about knowing that your future is brighter than your past and that your healing is worth the effort. You also have to understand that forgiveness isn't just a one-person act. Sometimes it involves forgiving yourself for past mistakes, for allowing others to hurt you, or for not seeing your worth sooner. Forgiving yourself is just as vital as forgiving others, because guilt and shame can keep you stuck in a cycle of self-punishment. When you forgive yourself, you free yourself from the prison of regret and open your heart to new possibilities. You begin to see that your past does not define you. Your present and future do. Forgiveness is a journey of grace, patience, and perseverance. It's about trusting that as you release what's heavy, you will begin to feel lighter, freer, and more alive. It's about understanding that your capacity to forgive is a reflection of your capacity to love and to heal. When you forgive, you're not just letting go of someone else's wrong. You're embracing your own power to choose peace over pain. You're affirming that your happiness and well-being are worth the effort it takes to forgive. As you walk this path of forgiveness, you'll discover that it's not just about what you do for others, but also about what you do for yourself. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself so that bitterness and resentment no longer have a place in your heart. It's about walking in freedom and knowing that your past does not have to hold you hostage. It's about understanding that healing is a process, and that every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. When you embrace forgiveness, you're stepping into a new level of emotional maturity and spiritual resilience. You're affirming that you are stronger than your pain, wiser than your wounds, and more committed to your peace than to holding on to hurt. Forgiveness isn't just an act, it's a lifestyle. It's a way of choosing love over bitterness, grace over revenge, and healing over hurt. It's about releasing every ounce of pain that tries to keep you bound and declaring that you are free to walk into your future unencumbered. The journey of forgiveness is also about understanding that not everyone will respond the way you want them to. Sometimes, forgiving someone means releasing them without expecting anything in return. It's about understanding that forgiveness is for your healing, not necessarily for reconciliation, and that's okay. Sometimes the greatest act of love you can show yourself is to forgive and then walk away, protecting your peace and prioritizing your growth. It's about trusting that as you forgive, you are aligning yourself with the divine power that restores, heals, and makes all things new. You're stepping into a space where you realize that your peace is worth the effort of forgiveness, that your happiness is worth the sacrifice of resentment, that your future is brighter than any pain you've endured. Forgiveness is the bridge from pain to peace, from brokenness to wholeness, from despair to hope. It's the key that unlocks the chains of the past so you can walk boldly into the destiny that awaits you.